Howdy, everybody. It's Lent at lunchtime. I'm Kathryn Whitaker. My guest today is going to be Katie McGrady. We're talking about celebrating Lent and Easter with a young family, and I knew just the person to call. So let me get Katie on here, and then we'll get started. We only have one more of these. That's hard to believe. So that's going to happen next week on Tuesday, but today I have Katie. So let me get her on here, and we'll get rolling. I hope that y'all have had a good week and that you're not feeling too weary from Lent. There she is, fresh off a plane. Hey, Katie.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. Are you feeling okay now?
Yeah, it was food
Okay.
poisoning. I ate some eggs I probably shouldn't have eaten. They weren't like from a weird like food stand or anything. They were in an Admiral's Club, but I'm good. I'm good now. We're here.
You're 100 or almost. I'll take 90%. I think you said you're
I'm at like
90%.
90. Like I will definitely be napping this afternoon because I took the afternoon off.
Good. Well, I'm glad that you're here. So I was telling everyone that we're going to be chatting about Lent and Easter with a young family. But before we do, this has become something that I really enjoy. So normally I would say like, Katie, tell everyone who you are, but I've been introducing people by way of saying what it is that I love about you.
Aw.
So here we go. Okay, so what do I love about you? There are lots of things that I love about you. I love that you share the reality of a young family with a lot of humor and a lot of humility, because I think that it reminds people that we don't have to live these perfect lives to live these faithful lives. So I really appreciate that. I love that you are even cooler in person than you are on the internet. You are so, I think, curious about things, and I think that makes you good at your job. I love that you do radio well. And I think that there's no better person to have the job than you. I really do believe that. And what else? And I love that you love Sonic as much as I do. Like you love Sonic Happy Hour, like I love it. And I could go on and on, but those are the things that I love about you. So I hope people got a chance to get to know you a little bit better.
Thanks, Kathryn. I'm actually going to take my kids to Sonic when I pick them up from school because I could use an ocean water just like everybody else probably could right about now.
Amen. As a matter of fact, I was getting ready to go to Sonic and get me a drink, and I was like, no, I will not have time to get back in time for Katie's live. So anyway,
I have to tell you, I was in Dallas yesterday and I drove past a gas station that said Dr. Pepper inside. Like that was the advertisement. I wasn't quick enough on the trigger to take a picture, but I immediately thought of you. Like, why does this gas station feel the need to tell everybody that Dr. Pepper's in? I mean, it was like an old timey sign that was up on the wall.
that's so
Anyway,
cute.
I thought
Well,
about
in
you instantly.
in Texas, if you don't have Dr. Pepper inside, no one is stopping you
No
at
one
the
cares.
place.
No one's going. That is all we need. When I drink Dr. Pepper, which is not all that often, because, and maybe this will end our friendship, sometimes it's like cough medicine to me. Like if it's not the right fizzy, like I need it
Yes.
carbonated. But the Sonic Dr. Pepper, it like hits every time. It just, from a can, I just can't do it.
No, the best kind of Dr. Pepper is always from the fountain because they can tweak the carbonation and the syrup.
I know I'm pregnant when, and this is not an announcement, I'm not right now, but I know like my main pregnancy craving is Coke from McDonald's because
Oh,
of the,
okay.
like their fizz is just like
It
next level.
hits right.
Talk about Jesus instead of soft drinks, but I'm okay with that.
Well, we'll talk about Jesus. So, okay, so you do have these two adorable girls who, crazily enough, have almost the same names as my two
Yes,
girls,
I
which
love
is
that.
nuts. So my girls are Anna Laura Grace and Claire Rose, and your
Rose Elizabeth and Claire Ann Laura. So it's just
crazy.
like
I
a fun little mashup.
It's a fun mashup. So maybe let's talk a little bit about this. I think there's a lot, I'll say this, I think there's a lot of pressure for young families to celebrate Lent and Easter a certain way, or you're not doing it right. So, what would you tell a young family who has this desire to have this meaningful liturgical event with their children, but how do they do it so that it's not overwhelming and that it is this beneficial season as opposed to being I know it's penitential, but extra
Yeah,
penitential when you're a mom. So what would be your encouragement? I know you're living it right now.
that's a great question. And I'm glad you asked because just a couple days ago, I opened up our playroom closet and the bag of sacrifice beans was sitting there. I was like, I'm pretty sure those are supposed to be on the kitchen table. At some point in the course of the 5 weeks of Lent, a child got rid of the sacrifice beans and mom and dad just didn't notice it because that is life. We
Right.
start with like these lofty goals of we've got this Lenten countdown, and we've got this magnet calendar where we move the little kids every day, and we have all of our Saint Feast Day cards, and we subscribe to Catholic Family Crate, and I love Catholic Family Crate's resources, and my kids love Catholic Family Crate resources, and then we all forget about the resources that we've bought because they live in a box, and we just don't go over to the box the way we should. And I feel like that's the snapshot. We set these goals of like, we're going to do our sacrifice beans.
Yep.
They're turned into jelly beans on Easter Sunday morning, and we're going to do this nighttime prayer where we specifically all say like one high and one low from the day, and where can Jesus, and like we do it super great for the first couple of weeks of Lent, and then life gets busy. And with the nature of my job, I travel a lot in the Lenten season for parish missions or for youth conferences. Like this is the busy season. So we have learned to pare it down and just try to do 3 essential things. Mass on Sunday is non-negotiable. And then generally after Mass on Sunday, sometimes around donuts, although our kids have sugar crushes, so we're kind of getting away from the donuts. But at some point in the course of Sunday morning, we try to have a conversation with the family about what we all heard at Mass. And that then kind of becomes all right, what's our theme for the week? Now, a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, obviously we have to approach it a little differently. The 3-year-old just kind of wants to run around and have her own thing going on. Our 6-year-old really does want to dig into some of these deeper questions. You've met Rose. She's my little
She's so curious. I love it.
She's like she is curious to a T, and she really wants to dig into some of these things. So we found that when we make the time for those conversations, but all rooted in the Mass experience, which is something we've all universally had. We find a lot too that during the Lenten season, when we talk about what we're fasting from and like mention it to one another, like Rose will ask for dessert after dinner, and we'll say, nope, no dessert tonight. And she'll be like, oh, it's Lent. And we're like, right, it's Lent. Like we're not having dessert. And then she gets really excited when it's a feast day and we can. So like Sundays, we
Right.
absolutely go ham ice cream. St. Joseph's Day, we totally ate cake. Like it was we want to lean into that rhythm of the calendar, but making an acknowledgement of the sacrifices that we're making. And then we found this year, we didn't really do it last year. We talked about it and then we just never pulled it off. But this Lent, every week, Tommy and I chose a different charity to give $25 to. And sat down with our kids and like looked at the website together, explained to them, like oftentimes some of these charitable organizations have videos like tell you what they're all about. And so we said $25. There's 4 people in our family. So mom and dad will put in 20. Rose and Claire will put in 5. And they have piggy banks and they earn chore money. And so it was just like this tangible, like Rose would come and hand us her $1 or $2 bills. And she felt like she was actually giving to this institution, this organization that she knew a little bit about. So we did the Sisters of Life, and that was easy because my sister is a Sister of Life. We did the fund for our local Catholic school, which is trying to rebuild. And so it was like, this is a school that you're going to go to one day. So like, let's give her. So we tried to choose things that were relevant and meaningful, but it gave almsgiving something tangible. Yes. Not that like going to Catholic charities isn't great, but like our kids are not at the age where that's really feasible for us right now. So I think it's trying to find things that work in your routine. And then the main thing, you can't beat yourself up about it when the beans somehow ended up in the closet and you totally missed it. And then like, I have to question my child, which one of you hid the sacrifice beans that you didn't want us to like point out our sacrifices? Like, I have a feeling it was a conscious choice that bean bag was put over. When I say sacrifice beans, there's this little brown bag. It's got black beans in it. And there was a jar. And every time you made a sacrifice of some sort in the Lenten season, whether it was we gave up dessert or I was kind to a friend at school who was maybe not being so kind, or like whatever that sacrifice was, you'd put a bean in the jar. And so it was this visual reminder, just like the straw for baby Jesus's manger at Christmas. But the beans have not been on the table probably longer than
there are many times like we lit our Advent calendar on fire, which is why we moved to toilet paper Advent fires, so the best of intentions. But I think it's important for people to hear that's enough, right? Like if you do the almsgiving and the highs and lows at your dinner table and fast from dessert, that's enough.
That's good.
It's good and holy. And if you did it this year and it didn't work, you can change it next year, or you can add more to it, or you can see what your kids have to say about Like sometimes when they say things like, oh, remember when we used to do that? And I'm like, y'all want to do that again? Yeah, we should do that again. I'm like, I didn't even like think that that was a thing, but it's a thing for
Mm-hmm.
them. And so this pressure, I'm grateful that you're saying like, take the pressure, like don't add more pressure to
Yeah.
your life in Lent. Okay. We are all living Lenti Lents.
Right. I mean,
Um,
Lent is pressure enough.
yes.
We're in the desert. Like, we don't get to say our favorite Catholic word. Like, there's already sacrifices happening.
Yes.
Yes, we need to turn it up, but not to the point where it makes our children hate Lent. Like,
Or
Lent
you
should be
hate Lent.
for us.
Like,
We should look forward to
yes.
it.
So how do y'all do like Triduum Holy Week? Like now that we're kind of nearing the end, I want to hear about this.
So, we cover up our sacred images in the
Okay.
house. We're actually going to do that
Okay.
tonight, which is like an old school tradition where it's like you take the visual reminders of Jesus away. So your parishes on Sunday would have all had Jesus covered up and like the crucifix and your sacred. So we're going to do that tonight as family. We've got purple fabric. We have never taken our kids to the Triduum services, and it was a judgment call in the sense of Mass is already a wiggly hour, and
Yes.
I get very self-conscious. My husband will happily look at somebody who says, you know, we have a cry room, and he'll be like, yeah, you can go there if you want to cry. But
I
Tommy, you
love
had
Tommy.
like he's not a man who cares what other people think. I, however, love those liturgies and would never want a child who's fighting bedtime or who's like confused about why we have to stand so long. Yes, I want to expose that to them for sure, but we're just not at a phase yet to do that.
Right.
I do think so. I said that's been up to this year. Our hope this year is to try to pull off Good Friday, and it's because our parish is doing something kind of unique, where the Good Friday service is at 3 o'clock, Veneration of the Cross, but then obviously, like the church is going to remain open for a few hours after the Good Friday service to come and to venerate the cross. And
Right.
so we're going to take the girls after the 3 o'clock service, which will probably be like 2 hours. So we'll go around like 5:30, 6 o'clock, and go spend a little bit of time in front of the cross.
I
And I
love
think that that's a nice, easy entry in. But Holy Thursday starts at 7. My kids are clockwork bedtime 7:45.
Yep.
Uh, so like, I mean, yes, we can make that sacrifice, but they're not at the age yet where I'm
Yep.
ready to make that sacrifice or force that upon them. But Tommy will probably go to Holy Thursday Mass. And then I love a good Easter Vigil. I think the Easter Vigil is obviously the most beautiful liturgy of the year. So I might go to Easter Vigil, and then we'll all wake up on Easter Sunday. I haven't fully planned out the week, but covering our sacred images, and then during Holy Week, the liturgy itself really. All of the masses throughout Holy Week, especially the entry prayers. I know this is like a really niche Catholic thing, but the opening prayer of your daily Mass is kind of your theme for the day. Like as a Catholic, like everybody always wants to go read the daily gospel, and I love the daily gospel. The Hallow app plays the daily gospel every morning for my husband and I while we're getting ready. But that opening prayer, that Mass prayer, is something really simple and beautiful that you can just look up. Like you just need a daily Roman Missal, you just need a Magnificat. So we try to read those during Holy. We've done that for a couple of years. We read it at the breakfast table. Now our spring break at our Catholic school is over Easter, so like we're
Oh,
off starting half day Holy Thursday through April 8th. So like our whole town almost kind of liturgically orients around the Good Friday, everybody's off of school. So that too will also be an opportunity. We will not do any TV on Good Friday.
yep.
We obviously we're going to try to go to church, but I think the point with littles, and 6 and 3 are littles.
That's little.
Yeah, like what are their capacities?
Yes.
A couple of years ago, Meg Hunter Kilmer came to Lake Charles for Ash Wednesday. We had like a big Mardi Gras party, and she came, and like people came, and she told saint stories. And so I had told her, like in the weeks leading up to it, I needed decorations. Like I needed to decorate my house for both the saint party, but then also Lent. And I discovered there's not a lot of Lenten decor. Like
There's not.
do it
Because if you're
yourself.
supposed to be getting rid of things,
Right. Like
they,
and I am
right.
not a minimalist. I am a millennial maximalist to the T. So like I was like, I need a sacred image of some sort, because on our mantle in our living room we always try to have something in the center. And so I, on Amazon of all places, found these like $25 a piece, like large, I'll post a picture on Instagram later, canvas prints of just these two sacred images. So one is Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane,
Oh,
and one is Jesus coming out of the tomb. And they're like classic art, but they were super cheap to buy on just these like stretched canvas. And so on Ash Wednesday, we put up the image of Jesus in the garden, and that's our
Love
Lent.
that.
And then we're going to cover it for Passiontide. And then the next thing the girls will see on Easter Sunday morning is Jesus coming out of the tomb. The Tada Jesus is what Rose calls it.
Ta-da. Ta-da.
Looks all excited.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
And those
Okay, now I can never unhear
yeah,
Ta-da, Jesus.
it's
Appreciate
Tada
that.
Jesus.
Okay.
Ta-da, yeah. But I think families, especially with little kids, need those visual reminders. So
Yes.
during Holy Week, I'll probably on our frame TV display some sacred images that will like help them understand like this is what here's the institution of the Eucharist, here's the washing of the feet. But it's also, what is it? What's today? Wednesday? We've got a little bit of time. We've got some time.
Well, I mean, I'll say this as far as littles go, like we gave ourselves a complete pass until our kids hit the age of reason. So like once you hit first communion year, we tried. And I'll say that there were some years that went beautifully and there were some years where like abandoned ship. Like there was one Holy Thursday that Scott rolled in at like 7:30, mass started at 7:15. I was like, what happened? He goes, bad, it was a bad idea.
Yeah.
So, but for the most part, when they hit the age of reason, we would switch off. Like he would go to Thursday, I would go to Friday. We would not go to the vigil because that was just inviting disaster. And then we would get up at 7:30 on on Easter morning and go to 7:30 mass. But I think the point is that you're saying, and I think that I'm affirming you, is that you have to figure out what works for your family. And hopefully this sort of trial and error you'll start to figure out like what's your family culture, like what's important to you. Is it really important to cover the images? Is it important to give your kids visuals? And then when they start to affirm you, like, oh, when they start to look forward to, like we make these resurrection cookies, they taste awful, but my kids love making them. Even my college kids were like, Mom, you have this stuff for resurrection cookies, right? I'm like, we haven't given that up yet. No, we have not given that up yet. So it's these little things I think that our kids remember and we forget. It's the intention, not the big like grand things. And then we also have cascarones, which everyone ends up crying on Christmas or on Easter morning because their cascarones are like eggs filled with confetti. And so then you break the eggs, but instead of crushing them, my kids break them on their sibling's head and everyone starts crying. And it's an Easter tradition.
So a couple years ago, I went to Walmart and bought what I thought were confetti eggs. I was so excited. They were like 99 cents. So I got these 12, what I thought were confetti eggs. Easter Sunday, we're all sitting around at my house. And I went, look at this, Rose. And I take one of those eggs and I smash it on her head. And it was not a confetti egg. I just hit her in the head with this, like, it was hollow, but I hit it pretty hard. She turned and she went, Mom? And I was mortified. I thought these were confetti. Because they were like, they were chalk eggs. They were like, and like you could color on the outside of it. So now anytime we have egg dyeing, and this year Target had like a little dinosaur egg kit. It's like you like dye the egg and then you build like this paper thing and like the egg becomes the back of a dinosaur or the belly of a dinosaur. And Claire's really into dinosaurs right now. So like that's how we'll do Easter eggs. And I have no doubt Rose will be like, don't get me mad, Mom.
Remember?
Yeah, she'll never forget it. It's like the one time I went to the wrong Walmart for our grocery pickup. And anytime I go to Walmart now, she's like, is this the right Walmart? I'm like, yes, it's the right Walmart. There was one mistake one time. And that it just goes to show they remember these things that are so seemingly insignificant. And that like liturgical living within a family, we have this this little, it's a book from Ave Maria Press of like what you could pray at your dinner table. So like instead of just the regular old bless the Lord, these like gifts, it's just like blessings before meals. And so we keep it on the window shelf and we'll pull it down. I forget to pull it down most of the time. Tommy's better about it than I am. But Rose has become like the keeper of the book. And she'll be like, what prayer are we praying tonight? And it's like, well, if you think about it, she blesses her meal at school. So she's doing blesses the Lord there. And we bless before breakfast. So it's like, maybe she's gotten tired of the regular one and she like wants to, but she remembers it. And you would think that like, no, the parent's responsibility is to maintain that. But for a kid, what they pick up on, and as parents, I think our responsibility is just exposure. And what do we think is going to hit? And it's throwing pasta at the wall. When's it going to stick? And that should take the pressure off. Like that should relieve us because you can only screw it up so many times. If you try 10 things and 5 of them work, it's not a passing grade, but it's not terrible.
Well, but then they also get this opportunity to have some ownership, right? So it becomes less about like, what's Mom doing for Lent and Easter, but what are we as a family doing? And then everyone sort of takes the thing that they love and they like promote their cause, right? And so, and as I think I've found as our kids have gotten older, the things that they care about start to manifest in how they celebrate certain things, or the things that they draw like the other family members' attention to. And that's such a gift to watch your kids find this inherent ability to connect with Jesus, and then they share that with the rest of the family, and we are now the beneficiaries of that recognition.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to allow your kids to, like you said, expose them to lots of things, let them try. I mean, there's so many things. Okay, I have a billion questions for you, but you
Yeah.
have to go on the air in like
No,
25 minutes. So,
I'm off.
oh,
Don't
you're
worry.
off. Okay,
I'm
okay.
off.
Well, I still won't keep you forever. Okay, so one last question. Katie, what's been the most meaningful part of your Lenten season this year with your family?
Oh man. So we our Lent felt, I mean, I feel like everybody can say this. Our Lent felt incredibly penitential. Very early on. So like Ash Wednesday, we got slammed with a huge plumbing bill. It was like, these repairs need to happen ASAP or you're going to have, issues. So that was just like, oh, well, there's all that money for the family vacation that we were like setting aside straight to the plumbing bill. And then I was out of town. I was in Lubbock, Texas. And it was just like for a one night thing. And our beloved pastoral associate, who's a dear family friend, texted me and he said, "You're never going to believe this." And I was like, "What?" And he was getting moved. And it's like pastoral reassignments happen all the time, but this one felt hard
Yeah.
because like he's Father Andy's ours. Like he's like like a picture of him on the wall is over there where he blessed me at his first mass, and he was in my youth group, and like my kids call him Uncle Andy. And it was necessary moves were happening because our chancellor retired early, and so like things had to happen a little ahead of schedule. We didn't expect to have him forever, but it didn't feel all that fair to have him
Yeah.
like move right away, especially during Lent. Like that's this is the playoffs, and we're losing our coach.
Right.
Um, and so like I, as a family, like we all just kind of felt that heaviness, that hardship. Tommy didn't get a job that he was up for, that he really didn't think he was going to get, so he was like experiencing disappointment. My sister's in the convent. We're super happy that she's in the convent, but we don't get to talk to her
Miss
except
her.
once a month. And so it's like the last time we talked to her was the first Saturday of Lent, and now we finally get another phone call with her this Friday. But it's just like I felt like this whole Lent I didn't get to talk to my sister. I like wrote her a few
Yeah.
letters, but she hasn't been able to write back because that's a sacrifice that they make. And so it's felt, that's all to say, it's felt heavy. And it's felt like none of this is major suffering or catastrophe. Nobody's dying, nobody's sick. Our house is fine now that these repairs have been done, but it still has just kind of felt like I didn't really want to be living any of this.
Yeah.
And Rose and Claire, we said it the other night at the dinner table. We're doing like highs and lows and ups and downs. And I asked Rose what her low from the day was. And she said, "I don't think anything bad really happened today, Mom. But I still didn't like the day." And I was like, Lent hasn't been all that awful, but I haven't particularly liked it. And I think a lot of us are very quick to say like, and it's there that Jesus, well, I've said that on Reels before, like it's in that like Lentiness, it's in that this feels hard that Jesus shows up. And it's like, yes, Jesus does show up, but it's not that Jesus shows up and snaps his fingers and makes it all better. And he's like, "I'm here now." It's like Jesus shows up and he's like, "And we're going to suffer in this together.
Right.
We're going to walk through that heaviness together." And like, even though other people from the outside might not have a whole lot of sympathy or empathy for that suffering, I'm going to be here with you in the middle of that. And so from that too, we've also been reading He Leadeth Me, the Walter Ciszek book that's Hallow's been digging into in their Lenten challenge. And I love that, the Hallow challenge, but my husband and I just bought copies of the book and have been reading it together. And neither one of us are read aloud people. And I've read it before. So he's been reading it and I've been reading it, and we've been having conversations about it. And from those fruitful conversations as mom and dad, husband and wife, we've been able to talk about how like, at least we're not in a Siberian prison. Like it was just a few
Right.
$1,000s of plumbing repairs. It was just our
Right.
priest, who, it's not like we're never going to see him again. It's just been a job. It's not like you're unemployed. It's just you didn't get this opportunity. And so I think being able to kind of hold that tension in terms of spiritual fruits, I've noticed with my kids, when we say, and we said it at the beginning of this, when I've said to them, like, "Nope, we're not doing that because of the sacrifice we're making. Like, nope, we're not going to Sweet Frog tonight after theater because it's Lent. And so like, we're not doing that tonight." Or, "No, we're not going to go get donuts on Sunday morning because one, you're going to sugar crash, but two, we're going to have our dessert tonight." Like that's when we're going to do the sweet that we're allowed to have this week. It's brought, I think, into clarity for my kids that even the simple sacrifice can have a bigger impact. And I've watched Rose, especially with her little sister, like if she chooses to do something to go out of her way to help Claire, or like she'll give Claire, I say like go get a snack, and she'll give Claire her snack first before she gets her own. I've noticed that like making this conscious sacrifice with sweets, which seems very childlike, has led to this greater awareness of where can I sacrifice elsewhere,
Yeah.
Which is my pitch to everybody to always give up sweets in Lent, because there's a lot of fruit that can be found, and not just maybe the pants are a little looser because you're not having as much sugar, but also just like I can sacrifice this little thing so I could maybe sacrifice this bigger thing later on. So that's just, some kind of bounced around thoughts.
No, I think it's I think that the whole point of today, and I didn't even plan it, but the Holy Spirit did, is that when we do less, but we do it with greater love, that's what makes the liturgical season, I think, and the church become familiar and a place of home for our children, as opposed to we're going to go through this checklist of things that we think that we're supposed to do, but it doesn't, it's not fruitful.
Yep.
Those things are all good, holy pious things, but like what works for your family and your children, you know them best. Are they curious? Are they introspective? Are they extroverts like me? Ta-da, Jesus. Oh my gosh, I'm going to remember that forever. Like,
Post a picture. I'll pull it out of
please
the
do.
closet.
Please do. I think that is the whole reminder today, is that your Lent is your Lent. So your family is your family, and own that and know that it's enough. I think sometimes we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. So Katie, so if people, well, I love you and I know I know where I can find you, but if people are listening and they don't know who you are, where can they find you? I mean, here obviously, but where else can they find you, listen to you, and all the things?
So every afternoon, except today because I took off because of the food poisoning, from 1 to 3 Central on Sirius XM 129, the Catholic channel, the Katie McGrady Show airs. We talk about pop culture and all sorts of things, more than pop culture, Jesus, the church, Catholic news. We interview fantastic people. Kathryn Whitaker, you're in the commercial breaks. It's always great when I can hear you through my ears. Like, there she is.
There's
Howdy,
Kathryn.
y'all.
Hey, y'all.
It's my favorite. And then I have a couple of podcasts. Like a Mother with Our Sunday Visitor is a podcast of deep dive conversations with moms about motherhood. And then Ave Explores, which we just wrapped up we wrap up our Lenten season on Palm Sunday with Father Tim Anastos coming on to talk about Holy Week. So we did a deep dive into Father Agostino Torres's book, Made for Heaven, which was a fantastic Lenten devotional. So Ave Explores is 4 seasons a year. Our last season this year, which I am super stoked about, we've started planning it, is a Catholic pilgrimage guide to the United States of America. So if you're road tripping this summer, here's some of the cool Catholic places where you could go. Here's some of the cool Catholic stories from U.S. history. In a time of division and a time of people sometimes don't know what makes Catholicism special here in the country because it's just been kind of used as a wedge in our culture. Here's that. Let's get away from the politics. Let's get away from the liturgy wars. Let's get away from the weaponization of conversation. Like, talk about how Catholicism has changed our culture in a positive way in this country. So Ave Explores, Our Sunday Visitor, Like a Mother, and then the Katie McGrady Show. The last thing, and this is relevant to the conversation we just had, my husband and I have a podcast every week on Hallow called Family Mass Prep, which helps families get ready for Mass. On the way to church, you can listen to a 10-minute little, Tommy's kind of silly, I play straight, we banter back and forth about the readings, it's a little skit, and then we dive into what hopefully these kids can take away from scripture. It's funny, a couple times the church, the lady who runs children's church at our parish will play Family Mass Prep, and Rose will be like, that's my mom and dad, and she didn't believe her at first. The lady was like, no, it's not.
Okay, yeah.
Afterwards, Rose was like, can you please go tell her that's really you? Because our last name, we don't say our last names, we just go, hi, I'm Katie, I'm Tommy. So that's my favorite project.
That's awesome.
My favorite resources.
Well, you are a lot on the internet, and thank you for reminding young families that it's possible to celebrate seasons of penitence and seasons of joy with a lot of intention. I love you, Katie. Thank you.
My friend, thanks
You're
for having me.
welcome. All right, bye, y'all.